Michael Jai White's comments about Bruce Lee have divided martial arts fans for years. Was Bruce genuinely untested, or is that argument missing the most important evidence? Few martial arts debates become emotional as quickly as a debate about Bruce Lee. To millions of people, Bruce was more than an actor. He represented speed, discipline, innovation, and the belief that intelligence could overcome physical limitations. But admiration can create mythology. Over time, Bruce has been credited with abilities that no historical evidence could possibly prove. Some fans describe him as unbeatable. Others react against that exaggeration by dismissing him as nothing more than a movie star. Michael Jai White challenged that mythology with a blunt distinction. He praised Bruce as one of history's greatest martial artists, but argued that Bruce was not a proven fighter in the same way as someone who had repeatedly competed against trained opponents. That distinction created years of controversy. Some viewers heard a legitimate argument about evidence, size, and competitive experience. Others heard an insult directed at the most influential martial artist of the 20th century. But what did Michael actually argue? Was he saying Bruce Lee had no genuine ability? Was he claiming that Bruce's training was meaningless? Or was he questioning the enormous gap between Bruce Lee's documented accomplishments and the almost supernatural reputation created after his death? To answer fairly, we must separate four things that are often mixed together: martial arts knowledge, sparring ability, competitive fighting experience, and cinematic performance. They can overlap, but they are not identical. Michael Jai White is not an outsider making a casual judgment. He is a lifelong martial artist who has earned black belts across multiple systems and spent decades training, teaching, and performing martial arts. His argument was built partly around experience and partly around physical reality. In public interviews, Michael described Bruce as the greatest martial artist to ever live. At the same time, he said Bruce wasn't a fighter. Those statements sound contradictory until we examine how Michael was using the word fighter. He was not denying Bruce's knowledge, discipline, or historical influence. He was distinguishing a martial artist from a person with a substantial documented record of competitive fights. Michael also emphasized weight. Bruce was a relatively small man. Michael's argument used a figure of approximately 130 pounds for Bruce and compared that with much larger trained martial artists. The precise number is less important than the underlying point. Size matters. That is why boxing, wrestling, kickboxing, and mixed martial arts divide competitors into weight classes. A larger athlete can generally produce more force, absorb more impact, and impose greater physical pressure. Skill can overcome size, but size does not become irrelevant simply because a smaller person is exceptionally talented. When the skill difference is enormous, the smaller fighter may still win. When both people possess serious training, however, a large weight difference becomes increasingly difficult to overcome. Michael believed fans were ignoring this reality because they wanted the smaller hero to defeat every larger opponent. That heroic image is powerful. It appears throughout Bruce Lee's movies. Bruce walks into a room filled with larger men, remains calm, and defeats them through speed, timing, and precision. But cinema is designed to tell a story. Real violence is not arranged to display the hero's strengths. Opponents do not attack according to choreography. They do not fall in carefully planned directions. The camera does not choose an angle that makes every movement understandable. Michael's central objection was not that Bruce possessed no skill. It was that movie imagery and martial arts mythology had been used as substitutes for a competitive record. That criticism deserves to be taken seriously. It is also important to acknowledge that Michael later expressed regret about how the argument had developed. He recognized Bruce Lee's cultural stature and the unnecessary controversy caused by reducing his legacy to hypothetical fights against larger men. His position evolved into something more cautious. Without evidence from actual fights, confident comparisons between famous martial artists can become meaningless speculation. That later clarification matters. It tells us that Michael was not engaged in a personal campaign against Bruce Lee. He was challenging an exaggerated claim about fighting ability, sometimes using language that sounded more dismissive than the evidence justified. So what evidence do we actually have about Bruce? Bruce began studying Wing Chun as a teenager in Hong Kong under the school of Jeet Man. He trained in the system for several years and developed a strong foundation in direct punching, close-range control, sensitivity, and efficient movement. That was not movie training. It was serious martial arts instruction. Bruce also participated in an inter-school boxing championship while attending high school. According to his official biography, the competition followed boxing rules and did not permit kicking. He won the championship. This does not make him a professional boxer, but it is documented competitive evidence. It demonstrates that Bruce had entered a rule-based contest, faced resistance, and succeeded against another trained young boxer. It immediately complicates the idea that Bruce had never tested himself in any form. The competition was not comparable to a modern professional career. It did not involve years of ranked opponents, public records, championship defenses, or extensive footage, but it happened. That means the most extreme version of the criticism, that Bruce had never competed or faced meaningful resistance, is inaccurate. Bruce was also known for fighting during his youth. His official biography acknowledges that concerns about fighting and trouble contributed to his departure from Hong Kong. Stories about individual street fights are difficult to verify. Memories change, witnesses disagree, and legends grow around famous people. For that reason, such stories should not be treated like a professional record. They do, however, provide context. Bruce's interest in practical combat did not begin when a film studio handed him a costume. His martial arts development grew partly from a desire to function under real pressure. After moving to the United States, Bruce began teaching martial arts in Seattle. He later established schools in Oakland and Los Angeles. His teaching developed beyond traditional Wing Chun. He studied footwork associated with boxing and fencing. He examined different kicking methods, grappling concepts, physical conditioning, and ways to intercept an opponent before an attack could fully develop. This process eventually became associated with Jeet Kune Do. Bruce did not want practitioners trapped inside rigid tradition. He emphasized simplicity, directness, adaptation, and personal expression. That philosophy is one reason he remains influential. However, philosophy alone does not prove fighting ability. A person can write intelligently about combat while lacking the ability to perform under pressure. The question is whether Bruce connected his ideas to physical practice. Available evidence indicates that he did. Surviving footage from the Long Beach martial arts events includes Bruce participating in controlled sparring while wearing protective equipment. The footage is limited. It does not show a professional fight, and it should never be marketed as one. But it is valuable. Bruce is not simply performing a memorized movie combination. He is responding to another person's movement. He controls distance, changes rhythm, uses his lead hand and lead leg, and attempts to intercept attacks. The protective gear makes some of the action difficult to see, and the purpose appears closer to instruction or demonstration than a contest between equal opponents. Still, it shows that Bruce practiced with resistance. It proves neither invincibility nor elite competitive status. It does show that his approach was not limited to solo forms, compliant demonstrations, or film choreography. Bruce also trained with accomplished martial artists. People such as Dan Inosanto, Joe Louis, and others exchanged knowledge with him or studied aspects of his approach. Testimonials from friends and students must be treated carefully. People who respected Bruce may naturally describe him in favorable terms, but the number and quality of martial artists who took his ideas seriously cannot simply be ignored. Bruce was not teaching an audience that knew nothing about combat. Some of the people around him already possessed significant martial arts experience. They could evaluate his movement, timing, and understanding directly. That does not turn every story they told into unquestionable fact. It does make the claim that Bruce fooled everyone around him increasingly difficult to defend. Then there is the private match with Wong Jack Man in Oakland. The meeting occurred, but the details remain disputed. Accounts differ about why the match was arranged, how long it lasted, and what happened during it. Sources associated with Bruce describe him gaining control and forcing the match to end. Wong's account challenged that version. The fight was private and apparently not filmed. Because the surviving accounts conflict, it cannot serve as perfect proof for either side. Bruce's supporters cannot responsibly transform it into a flawless victory over a great master. His critics cannot responsibly declare that it proves Bruce was exposed. The safest conclusion is that a physical confrontation occurred, and that Bruce regarded the experience as a reason to improve his conditioning and expand his methods. That response is revealing. Bruce apparently did not walk away believing he had demonstrated perfection. He examined what had gone wrong. He was dissatisfied with the time and effort required to control the encounter. Instead of protecting his ego, he changed his training. That willingness to confront weakness is a quality commonly found in serious fighters. A fraud avoids testing. A serious practitioner learns from it. But we must preserve the other half of the truth. Bruce Lee did not leave behind a professional boxing, kickboxing, or mixed martial arts record. We do not have footage of him progressing through a ranked division. We do not have a series of recorded bouts against elite opponents, preparing specifically to defeat him. We do not know how he would have performed through multiple hard rounds against a professional who could absorb his opening attacks. We do not know how he would have responded after being badly hurt in competition. We do not know how effectively he could have escaped from a highly trained wrestler or submission specialist. We do not know how his body would have handled a sustained attack from a much heavier opponent. These are not insults. They are unanswered questions created by the absence of evidence. Every professional fighter eventually reveals weaknesses. Competition removes the protection of reputation. It exposes reactions to fatigue, injury, fear, tactical adjustment, and public pressure. Training partners may respect an instructor's authority. An opponent who has prepared for months does not. That is the strongest part of Michael Jai White's argument. Bruce's abilities were never documented through the kind of repeated professional testing that modern audiences use to evaluate fighters. Calling Bruce the greatest competitive fighter in history would therefore be impossible to support. There are fighters with dozens of recorded contests against world-class opponents. Their victories and defeats can be studied in detail. Bruce does not possess that kind of record, but does that mean he was not a real fighter? That depends entirely on the definition. If a real fighter means a professional combat sports athlete with an established record, Bruce was not one. He should not be placed above professional champions simply because his movies were more influential than theirs. If a real fighter means a person who trained for practical combat, sparred with resistance, competed in at least one organized boxing environment, and continued refining techniques for functional use, then Bruce clearly qualifies. This is where the phrase "not a real fighter" becomes too broad. It combines a fair criticism with an unfair conclusion. A more accurate statement would be that Bruce Lee was a serious martial artist with practical experience who was never tested through an extensive professional fighting career. That description recognizes both the evidence and its limitations. Now consider Bruce's speed. His speed was real. Even when we account for film choreography, stage demonstrations, and enthusiastic witnesses, Bruce's movements were exceptionally fast. Speed, however, is not simply the ability to move a hand quickly. Effective fighting speed includes recognition, decision, and timing. A person must detect an opening, choose an appropriate response, and deliver it before the opportunity disappears. Bruce built much of his approach around interception. He wanted to strike as the opponent began moving, not after the attack had fully developed. That requires an understanding of distance and intention. The surviving demonstrations and sparring footage suggest that Bruce possessed excellent explosiveness and unusually sharp control of range. But speed does not guarantee victory. A fast strike that misses accomplishes nothing. Speed can be disrupted by pressure, feints, clinching takedowns, and changes in rhythm. A larger opponent may not need to match every movement if he can close distance, absorb limited contact, and force a physical exchange. Bruce's speed would be an important advantage. It would not be magic. Power must be treated the same way. Bruce demonstrated impressive power relative to his body weight. His short punches and powerful side kicks became famous because he understood how to connect the movement of his body to the point of impact. Those demonstrations revealed athletic coordination and technical force production. They did not prove he could instantly defeat anyone of any size. Striking a prepared target during a demonstration differs from hitting a moving opponent who is defending, countering, and attempting to hurt you. Bruce's power was meaningful. The mythical version of his power is not evidence. Timing may have been his most important attribute. Bruce studied how to control distance, break rhythm, and attack during transitions. A physically larger person can be difficult to handle, but size must still be applied. The larger person has to reach, grab, strike, or pressure the smaller opponent. Timing can interrupt that process. This is why the size argument is powerful without being absolute. Michael was right that large differences in weight create real advantages. He would be wrong only if that fact were treated as a mathematical guarantee. Fights are affected by rules, environment, preparation, age, conditioning, and individual styles. A boxing match is not a kickboxing match. A kickboxing match is not a grappling contest. A regulated competition is not an uncontrolled assault. Even the phrase, "who would win?" is incomplete until the conditions are defined. Bruce Lee and Michael Jai White came from different eras and trained within different environments. Michael had access to decades of martial arts development that occurred after Bruce's death. Modern training contains knowledge drawn from kickboxing, full-contact karate, wrestling, boxing, strength science, and mixed martial arts. Bruce helped promote the idea that practitioners should learn across stylistic boundaries, but he did not live to see the modern combat sports system fully develop. Michael is also dramatically larger. If someone asks who would have the physical advantage in a hypothetical confrontation, the honest answer is Michael. His size, strength, and reach would create serious problems. His extensive martial arts background means Bruce would not be facing an untrained large man. Ignoring that would turn analysis into hero worship. But acknowledging Michael's advantage does not allow us to announce the result of a fight that never happened. We cannot know how each man would prepare. We cannot know the rules. We cannot know their condition on the day. We cannot use a movie, a demonstration, or an interview to manufacture certainty. Michael Jai White and Bruce Lee never fought each other. Any realistic image showing them together must therefore be identified as an illustration or hypothetical visualization, not historical footage. The same rule applies to dialogue. Michael's documented comments can be quoted or accurately paraphrased. Invented statements should not be placed in his mouth. A responsible analysis does not need a fake confrontation. The actual question is more interesting. What should count as evidence when judging a martial artist? Bruce's films are evidence of athleticism, coordination, and cinematic intelligence. They are not evidence of victory in a real fight. His demonstrations are evidence of speed, mechanics, and control. They are not professional contests. His sparring footage is evidence that he trained against resistance. It is not proof that he could defeat an elite champion. His boxing championship is evidence of genuine competition. It is not a professional career. The Wong Jack Man match is evidence that Bruce accepted at least one serious private challenge. Its disputed details prevent it from becoming a reliable measure of dominance. His students' testimony is evidence of the impression he made on knowledgeable martial artists. Personal loyalty and memory require us to treat those accounts cautiously. When all of these pieces are combined, a clear picture begins to emerge. Bruce Lee was neither the invincible superhero created by legend nor the empty performer imagined by his harshest critics. He was a highly dedicated, innovative martial artist with real speed, practical training, and some competitive and confrontational experience. He was also unproven at the highest professional level. Michael Jai White was correct to challenge the idea that Bruce's fame automatically made him capable of defeating every larger martial artist. He was correct that weight matters. He was correct that professional fighting experience provides evidence that demonstrations and films cannot replace. He was also correct to become more cautious about hypothetical comparisons that no one can settle. But saying Bruce was not a real fighter goes too far if it suggests he lacked practical ability or never tested his techniques. The historical evidence does not support that dismissal. Bruce trained seriously. He boxed competitively. He sparred. He accepted physical challenges. He analyzed failure and changed his methods. Those are the actions of a genuine martial artist concerned with functional fighting. The fairest verdict is this. Bruce Lee was a real fighter in the broad martial sense, but he was not a proven professional fighter in the modern competitive sense. Michael Jai White's argument is strongest when it attacks the myth of Bruce Lee's invincibility. It becomes weakest when the absence of a professional record is treated as the absence of genuine fighting ability. Both men deserve a more intelligent discussion. Michael deserves to have his actual position presented without turning him into a villain. Bruce deserves to be evaluated through documented evidence instead of exaggerated stories. Respecting Bruce Lee does not require pretending he could defeat every opponent. Respecting Michael Jai White does not require accepting every word of his argument without examination. The most honest conclusion exists between worship and dismissal. Bruce Lee's greatness was not established by an imaginary victory over Michael Jai White. His greatness came from how deeply he examined martial arts, how relentlessly he developed his body and mind, and how powerfully he changed the way millions of people understood combat. He questioned rigid systems. He encouraged adaptation. He connected physical technique with philosophy and personal expression. He helped create a cultural environment in which martial artists from different traditions could study one another more openly. None of that makes him unbeatable. It makes him influential. And influence is not the same thing as a fight record, but it is still a form of greatness. So, was Michael Jai White right? Partly. He was right that Bruce Lee's professional fighting credentials have been exaggerated. He was right that size and competitive experience matter. He was right that movies should never be mistaken for real fights. But the phrase "not a real fighter" fails to describe the complete evidence. Bruce Lee was tested, just not as thoroughly, publicly, or repeatedly as a professional champion. The difference matters. Bruce Lee does not need supernatural claims to remain extraordinary. The documented truth is impressive enough.